Morning.
Good morning.
Good. All right. Is the press ready? How about a thumbs up? All good? All right. Okay. Sometimes y'all could sit like in the front, like in church, it'd be all right. Well, good morning. Before we get into insurance, I want to acknowledge that the OTS Chief Information Officer, Evelina Broussard, is here, as well as the Commissioner of OMV, our new Commissioner, Brian Adams. And for the past few weeks, OTS has been working to find a solution to the OMV mainframe bottlenecks that have been causing havoc on the system and not allowing people to be able to renew their driver's license. I know that many Louisianians have been frustrated. We issued a declaration of emergency in order to handle this situation. And last Thursday evening, we implemented one of the solutions that OTS believed would remedy the problem, and we have seen significant improvements in performance and stability since that time. We have gone 4 straight days with no issues, and which is a record over the past few months. So I think that this proves that when we focus and we get the right leadership in place, especially at OTS's level, that we can fix these problems. We're going to continue to work to stabilize and upgrade the hardware. And at the same time, we're choosing a replacement to convert to a new system. Remember, we've been on a system that was built in 1970, before many of those in this audience, as I look around, were actually even born. And so that just tells you how long we've needed to change the system. The system has not been purged since 2008. In fact, some of those that I see in the audience probably were still in high school in 2008 and maybe before. So I just wanted to be able to make that announcement. I think it's an important announcement. I think that it continues to show Louisianians out there that we are completely capable of solving problems, and we do not like to kick cans down the road. And that's exactly why we're here today. One of the most pressing issues that are affecting the budgets of Louisiana families is the cost of insurance. And it has become a crisis not only in this state, but in the nation as well. Last year, major business journals like the Wall Street Journal, like Forbes magazine, published story after story about the high cost of automobile insurance and homeowners insurance. At the same time that they're publishing these articles, insurance companies continue to send to Wall Street record profits, while our rates continue to climb, and there seems to be no relief in sight. As we began last year, poll after poll said that the top concern of Louisianians at that time last year was crime. And so we focused on it. We dealt with education, we dealt with the economy, and we also at that time dealt with insurance. We made great strides in public safety, educational reform, and we currently right now have historic economic activity. Again, just yesterday in this very room, we announced a $4 billion expansion here in the capital area that lays on top of the $6 billion expansion we announced at the White House 2 weeks earlier. It goes further 2 weeks before the $18 billion expansion that we announced down in Plaquemines Parish, making that site the largest construction project in North America. Those are historic mile markers for our citizens. They bring great permanent jobs with high incomes that start to elevate the average income of Louisiana families. We passed dozens of bills last year because we also focused, as I said, on insurance, and we passed dozens of bills that we were told were going to lead to lower rates. That is more than any other governor has done in the first 6 months of his or her administration. And yet, we stand here today seeing very little improvement. And while some of those changes may take time, the profits continue to go up while the amount in our citizens' pockets go down. Since that time, I have poured through the data. I have heard the arguments from both sides. And each time that we were told that changes were necessary and we made them, the only casualty continued to be your wallet. And so today, I want our citizens to know that I'm actually tired of the lies. Though some people would rather bury their head in the sand and ignore the data, it is actually time for this building to respond in fairness and accountability. And again, bring fairness and accountability into the process. Because again, for far too long inside of this very building, there has been a battle waged between insurance companies and trial lawyers. And where those who are behind me are forced to choose. And let me be clear, I believe both sides have plenty of blame to go around. So today, I'm not here to help any lawyers, and I'm not here to help any insurance companies. I'm here to help the citizens of this state. And so I plan to work on legislation with those behind me to hold both sides accountable. And what I would suggest is a balanced approach that has never been taken place in this building. Never before has the legislature looked at insurance and said, we're going to take a balanced approach. And I believe that it is the only way to bring you relief. To confirm what I believe, I recently went into the field and polled the citizens of our state. And the results that came back tell me that they agree. They agree that both lawyers and insurance companies are equally to blame. They also believe that bad or uninsured drivers are to blame. Those are the top 3 items that our citizens believe basically increase the cost of their automobile insurance. And so again, I refuse to travel down a continual failed road. And so I'm going to again suggest that we take a balanced approach. Instead of passing laws that deal with one side of the scale, under which we've done again and again and again with no relief, I say we adjust the scales. We add fairness and we add accountability. And so here's what the data says. The data says that our accident frequency in this state is in line with the national average. We don't have more car crashes than any other state. We're pretty much in line with the rest of the nation. Our cost to repair those vehicles, again, is in line with the rest of the state. This next data point, I will tell you, shocked even me, because contrary to what we have been told, our injury claim severity is less than the national average. Okay, it's less than the national average. The amount of severe injuries that Louisianians receive in automobile accidents is less than the national average. That, I'll be honest, was a shock even to me. The only outlier in the numbers is minor injury claims, under which Louisiana is almost double the national average. So when you look at data and you see those types of outliers, you say, oh, that is a problem. We should focus on that problem. And so to me, that points to a cultural problem that many of our citizens believe is driven by lawyer advertising, and that corrections are needed to our tort law. On the insurance side of the data, we see that loss ratios, or the amount of money insurance companies pay out per dollar collected by policyholders, is better in Louisiana than it is in Texas and in Florida. and it is in line with Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas. So again, the amount of money that insurance companies make in Louisiana is more than they make in Florida and Texas. And that's wrong. And so I challenge the legislature to take, again, this balanced approach that holds both sides accountable for the data. It's an approach that is also fair to the victims who are legitimately injured in an accident. And so let's begin with the obnoxious amounts of money that both sides are spending advertising. I am standing before you today and pledge to sign legislation that was vetoed by the last governor that at the time Senator Heather Cloud had brought and passed that reins in lawyer advertising. I believe that Representative Kim Carver has such a bill and that Senator Cloud has agreed to help him as well. Too much of this advertising is having a cultural effect on our society and it's not healthy. However, to balance this, insurance companies should not be allowed to pass their advertising costs into the bills of Louisiana families. If the insurance companies want to hire overpaid celebrities to appear in commercials and have geckos sipping on coffee and riding motorcycles, then our citizens should not pay for that in their premium increases. Texas does not allow it, and neither should we. I'm just as tired of seeing Morris Bart as I am of seeing the lizard. To address the small injury claims, in 2020, then Representative Richard Nelson passed a bill to reverse a judicial precedent called Housley. This bill, again, was vetoed by the last governor. I plan to sign it if they can get it to my desk. This is a court-made law that mandates that injury in any case is presumed to be caused by the accident. And that's absurd. This measure would make it harder for frivolous lawsuits to move forward by making the lawyers and their clients prove their injuries were the result of the car accident, not a pre-existing injury or an injury that occurred after the accident. Reversing that court-made law should have an absolute effect on small injury claims. Last year, I vetoed a bill regarding collateral source, which they now want to call medical transparency, because I believed it did nothing to address the problem and took the rights away from those who are legitimately injured. We were told that adjustments in the collateral source would bring relief to our policyholders. We took it from 100 to 40%. That's a 60% deduction. No relief. I encourage the legislature to look again at our neighbor in Texas. We should bring the same collateral source or medical transparency policy that Texas has to Louisiana. If we adopt a Texas model, then I believe we will have reached a fair and balanced approach. Everyone says that we should look to Texas. Again, this is the second piece of this package that has a Texas component to it. And it would be a substantial improvement from the bill that I vetoed last year, making our policy, if passed by the Texas model, a better model. Unfortunately, and as our citizens have rightly outlined, we have a growing number of drivers who continue to use our highways in defiance of our laws by driving with no insurance. We have tried to adjust that law. Many times we call it no pay, no play. I say that we need our no pay, no play concept to be strengthened, because uninsured motorists should not have the same rights as those responsible citizens who are paying to have insurance coverage. I encourage the legislature to raise the award exclusion limits on our no pay, no play law from $15,000 to $100,000. This should dramatically affect the minor injury claims data for those who are uninsured or do not have coverage requirements. Now, to our last slide. In continuing down a path of being balanced and holding both sides accountable. As we travel down that accountability road, the data regarding loss ratio of our neighboring state compares to us tells us that our insurance commissioner has been unable to hold insurance companies to their word. I do not believe that it is personal. I believe that he just does not have the power to be able to do that. The data says that I am correct. If we change the model and the power that our insurance commissioner has to reflect the one that Texas has, or Mississippi, or South Carolina, or Florida, or Alabama, then maybe we would have somebody that can hold the insurance companies accountable for these rate increases. It seems to be that if they make less money in Texas, but the rates are less in Texas, but the insurance commissioner can hold them accountable, that maybe that's what we need. Again, this is the third component of this plan that encourages the legislature to look to Texas. Because again, decade after decade, we have been told by these insurance companies that the changes we make would lead to lower rates. They have broken their word again and again and again. I also believe that to further that accountability, I'm supporting legislation to prevent these insurance companies from arbitrarily labeling information as confidential and proprietary. They want transparency on the other side. We should have transparency on that side as well. They are preventing the public from seeing information that can assist the insurance commissioner in decision making, which could foster innovation and prevent more dominant insurance companies from hiding this data just to be able to exclude competition in our market. Again, I ask the legislature to demand transparency on these insurance companies, just as we demand transparency at trial. There are a few other improvements that I'll be supporting. It's time we join the rest of the country and enact measures that prohibit drivers from texting or interacting with social media while they are driving. That law exists in Texas as well. That's part of the bad driving numbers we see in this poll. The tragic consequences of distracted driving are far too common and contributes to too much of the insurance problem that we're seeing today. In further talking about fairness, I believe that if someone comes into our country illegally, their rights to benefit from the insurance system we all pay into should be severely limited as well. Other states have taken this approach, like Texas. I say we look at it again. We should also require a minimum of a 5% premium discount for large trucks that maintain an operable dashboard camera to record their movements. I've spoken to commercial drivers, and many of them have these on their dash, and they get no discount for them. As a lawyer, I could appreciate the evidence that could be collected from these cameras, and for those commercial truck drivers to place them in there, they should receive a discount. This source of direct evidence should reduce litigation and provide valuable training information for improving truck driver safety. I believe through these pieces of legislation, we should see automobile insurance lowered. And we can do it without harming those that have legitimately suffered injury at the hands of those that are negligible. What we want to reduce are the frivolous cases. It is that injury and property damage that forms the very essence of why we even have insurance coverage. And no reform measures should overlook that very factual premises. To help our consumers, we should prohibit the use of credit checks to set someone's insurance premium. That is a recommendation that Forbes made. And reform the penalties when insurance companies impose on those who have periodically lapsed their coverage without getting on the road. Those are two components to what Forbes says increases automobile insurance. If an individual has not operated the vehicle without insurance, the company should not be able to arbitrarily presume otherwise and is an excuse to raise their premiums. Insurance coverage in this state is not an option. It is mandated by law, and our citizens are forced to pay for it. With that mandate comes great responsibility from those who cover them, meaning the insurance companies, who today continue to record profits at Wall Street. And in many ways, I believe, have just as much lost the trust of our people. Using one side of the scale to restore that trust, quite frankly, will not work. The only way to lower these rates is to take a balanced approach, to look at states that have taken on this issue and have seen different results. I will tell you that when you don't take a balanced approach, as Florida did last year, they tried wholesale reform, tort reform, that the insurance company said would lower rates in Florida. And today, policyholders in Florida struggle to get the very claims paid on the policies that they paid for. As governor in this session, I again pledge to hold both sides accountable on behalf of the people of this state. The only side that I choose are our citizens, for they have given too much of their money to be taken advantage again and again. And I'll also add, there are also two other other areas that we can look at. And that's the ability of insurance companies to change adjusters' reports. We've seen that as a problem across the country. Again, Forbes believes that the credit report also will make a big difference, and I encourage our legislature to look at those two issues as well. These are two areas that have been documented and proven. My hope is that if this legislature adjusts the scales so that they are balanced, so that we give our Commissioner of Insurance the power to be able to accurately and forcefully hold these insurance companies accountable, that we will then finally have placed the tools necessary in this capital city to start to see lower rates. Thank you, and I'll now open it up to any questions y'all may have. Yes, ma'am. That bill, well, I believe that the bill that Senator Heather Cloud placed on Governor Edwards' desk is constitutional because it's a balance, to be able to balance a First Amendment right that they have to advertising and what is basically maybe a message that continues a culture that I believe is driving those numbers here. And so I believe that the bill that Heather had that was vetoed, if we pass it, probably is our best chance to thread that needle. So I would encourage you to look at what Governor Edwards vetoed a few years ago, and that's what I would support.
Governor, why is the Insurance Commissioner Tim Temple holding his own auto insurance question tomorrow?
I have no idea. You'd have to ask him tomorrow.
Governor, this sounds like all the bases that I've heard about. The one thing I saw, you mentioned the commissioners doesn't have the authority to find a rate excessive. However, the commissioner does, if I'm correct, have the authority to reject and approve rates. So how is that different?
Again, what we did was we looked whole scale at the powers of other insurance commissioners in the southern states that we're used to talking about. And we compared those to the power that our insurance commissioner currently has. And what we found was that we hold the most weakest regulatory structure for holding insurance companies accountable. And so I don't know what he has today, but it's not working, right? But all those other states grant their commissioners greater power. And yet we talk about how those rates are much lower. So again, it's just based upon pure data. It's not based upon feelings. It's not whether I like one person or another. It's based upon, we're letting the data follow the policy.
As a follow-up to that, I'm just wondering what you can share about the legislation that you're backing that would give the commissioner more power. Like what, can you say more about the legislation itself?
Yeah, I would encourage you to look at what Texas has. Let's see, we'll go to him and then we'll come to you, Julie.
I know this is about the auto insurance, but do you have anything on your mind or anything in legislation that you're looking at that would address property insurance?
Yeah, look, we continue to look at ways under which to lower our property insurance. It was part of the discussion that I've had with Senator Talbot. We're looking at improving our fortified roof program. Alabama seems to have been able to drive rates down utilizing that program. So that's something that we're continuing to look at in ways to fund it. We continue to lean in. I'm hopeful that the Trump administration will not be as negligent as the Biden administration when we ask for changes in the flood insurance program. And so we look to lean in that way as well. Julie? Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you for having this press conference. It's really helpful. I actually have a question on the budget. I was wondering if you are going to support any efforts to have teachers retain some or all of the money that they've gotten the past 2 years in that stipend.
Well, again, look, Julie, we knew that we were going to have a budget shortfall this year. Even knowing that we were going to have a budget shortfall, we agreed to an additional to extend that stipend for an additional year. I would remind you that that stipend was added at the end of a governor's term. That's a nice gift to give the legislature, right? Especially when it does not come from reoccurring revenue. We hoped to answer that in a very fiscally conservative way in what we put in Amendment 2. Evidently, the teachers didn't like that. I sent a letter yesterday to every teacher in the state of Louisiana, clearing the air on that because there was a lot of disinformation and outright lies about what the legislature had worked so hard to accomplish. We'll continue to work inside the budget to see what we can find, and we'll see where it ends up. I'm making no commitment on that.
As you stated earlier, no one has been able to explain why Louisiana's rates are higher than other states. And you're just kind of chasing down these different roads for years. You mentioned the companies are labeling information as proprietary. Would the bill that you're supporting allow the commissioner or the general public to kind of peek under the hood and see, okay, this is how the rating works?
That's going to be a decision for the legislature. But what we're trying to do right now, it's as simple as if I'm an insurance company and I don't want you to see any information, I just put a label on it and you as the commissioner don't get to see it, right? And so I think that giving him the ability to look completely under the hood, as you say, would greatly help us, whether the legislature, to what extent they want to make that information public. But guess what? Once we know that he knows, he should then be able to better tell us what the problem is. Yes, sir.
So I'm just curious what you can say about the tariffs. car cars are more expensive, they could force drive up insurance. It's basically worried about that at all.
Now, I don't know how those two are connected. I don't believe that is accurate. I think that what we've seen is that automakers are starting to onshore domestic production as quickly as they can. I think that it's important for the American people to appreciate the approach that the president has taken. It's a reciprocal tariff. It says if I as an American can't sell those goods to you without and you're imposing a high tariff, why is it fair for you to impose a high tariff on the goods you send to America? I think it's I think it's in line with what we're seeing right here, which is an actual balanced approach. It's something we haven't taken in this country and in this state in a very, very long time. I think we'll have time for one more question.
Please, yeah, a two-part question on property insurance.
Yeah.
Property insurance is, costing Louisiana citizens and businesses, a great deal. Why is the focus today so much on auto insurance given the cost of property?
Well, look, what we have done last year, we passed, I think, 12 of the 26 or maybe 14 of the 26 measures that we were told would lower property insurance. We haven't seen that. We continue to review that data. We're trying to impose ways to shore up the roof. The fortified roof program. Thank y'all. And then we also, let me just tell you this. I've also met with a few insurance companies that are talking about building commercial lines for property as well. And so we're hoping to work this legislature to be able to implement some of the things that they need in order to bring them into the market. We may have to look at leaning in on citizens even more. Let me just tell you, property insurance is something that affects me or affected me. When I was a U.S. congressman, I had to get in 2010, the only policy that I could get in New Iberia, Louisiana was through Citizens. So believe you me, no one wants to work to fix this better more than me. What I would caution is we don't want to go down the road that Florida traveled, which is what we're hearing continuously echoed in this capital, is that if we believe everything the insurance companies tell us, we're going to be fine. Go ask those folks in Florida how that worked out. Encourage the legislature to take that balanced approach, to look at the things that we have laid out here as we poured through the data, that this is the best opportunity we have to start to affect change and see our rates get lowered. Thank you so very much.